G'day, I'm Sebastian Perry. I've been working in AIE's incubator for the last 5 years, and we've been able to help teams of graduates produce games for digital distribution and independent publishing. Some of the titles that have passed through the incubator that are close to or in early access or being published on Steam can be seen in this window here. And we've also got a number of games published on mobile platforms. All these products have been through the process of production. So for me, the production of independent video games is all about planning and organizing the creation of the video games. One thing I've observed is there's no wrong or right way to do this, as every team is completely different. So really, it's down to the team and how they best work. Larger teams need a bit more organisation. Smaller teams can be a bit more agile. Hopefully through the presentation you'll pick up some tips and tricks and tools to use. I'll be focusing on two parts of the production, which is the product itself and the business behind the product. At all of the stages listed below, testing will feature throughout the development of the product and the business. Testing is to gather feedback to assist with making valid decisions. So in the product development, we'll be exploring team formation, prototyping, refactoring the prototype, vertical slice creation or a demo, full production, release, and post-release as critical stages of product development, as well as common goals identified, the resources required, task tracking, establishing communication with audiences and amongst the group, business plan development, promotion, marketing, sales, and sponsorship and sales. I've tried to kind of list things that sort of make sense in terms of the flow. However, different teams do different things and may stop at certain points. Vertical slice might be enough to release a game for mobile with updates following that. So this is broad strokes. It's not the only way to do things. So in team formation, essentially I've got game jams listed, as I feel like these are really great places for independent developers to sort of get to know other developers and potentially form teams. Organic team formation really does work well. It generally means that people have gravitated towards other people that are like-minded, and that improves the potential for a group to actually be able to finish and produce something. Game jams also provide an opportunity for teams to test how they work, what they work on. When you're doing a team, try and get a mix of skills. An ideal team would include artists, programmers, designers, potentially a marketing person, and potentially a business person. Common goals. For the business, you essentially want to figure out what sort of games do you want to make, what games are made by teams like us, identify gaps in the market. You can do these things by looking at what's there already in the market, have a look at Steam, have a look at Greenlight, and see if you can kind of cook up an idea that's unique and different, perhaps building on somebody else's idea, taking it in a new direction. I like the idea of naming ideas early, or at least attempting to. This allows you to run due diligence. Due diligence is essentially ensuring that you're naming your game something different to what's already on the market. And it can take a while. So it is a bit of a process. And it is difficult because there are so many great products out there with great names. You may not get a name this early on. However, if you start on the process, you're more likely to be able to name it when it needs to be named. How does what I do fit in? Or how does what I want from this product fit in with the overall project? That's essentially speaking to ensuring that all team members are engaged with the product. So really, making a game to make tons of money is kind of not necessarily the best way to engage all the developers. So have a look at the games that you do like playing. Have a look at how you can maintain motivation to develop a product. How do we work and what tools will we use? So obviously there's some great game engines out there along with other tools that will assist in the development of your product. I've listed three that seem to produce quite successful games. Unreal obviously does really great networking and high quality graphics. Unity is quite a flexible tool, easy to work with, and teams seem to get really good results, particularly with single player games. And Game Maker Studio for pixel games, it's a hard one to beat, and there's some really great games that have been built using that product. So prototyping. Prototyping is kind of a philosophy that seems to be maintained throughout the whole process of building a game. Essentially, early on though, you'll be prototyping lots of different ideas, and you're trying to discover unique game ideas, something a bit different. Get lots of ideas from the whole team. That way you can ensure that you're getting a good variety. Make them fast, 1 week, quick and dirty. Don't worry about, all of the making sure everything's perfect. Run some focus tests once you've developed a suite of prototypes to allow you to pragmatically pick the best game to pursue in further development. And I've just sort of included a little diagram here, which is essentially the prototyping test loop, which is essentially design the prototype, quickly develop the content, internally test to make sure it's not, or smoke test so that it's not buggy or too buggy, and analyze the results. So during each phase, once you've settled on a design, develop content based on a core mechanic potentially, deploy content to be played by the developers, so make sure there's a build of the game that you guys can play so you can test it. List all of the bugs and problems limiting the fun of the game, make fixes based on that, then analyze the results of playtest and develop a list of design improvements to implement if the game's chosen to go further. So that little loop takes about a week to ensure that your ideas are kind of solid. So if we drive forward, during this time, you'll be looking at trying to establish kind of a list of resources and understanding of what it is you're going to be doing. You need to establish a time frame. The sooner you do this, the better. How long does the team actually have to actually produce this thing? If it's a game jam, you might only have 48 hours. If you're in AIE's incubator program, you might have 2 years. You'll need to establish a budget based on the team's financial situation and time frame. I definitely recommend seeking mentors and peers, people that you can bounce your ideas off, help you with due diligence, help you improve your approach to things. And to that effect and that end, establishing a professional network through expos and game dev meetups is really going to help you there. So I've got some associations listed here that could help with you establishing a professional network or finding further information in regards to the state of the industry at any one time. AGEA is particularly good for that. IGDA there are chapters throughout all the major cities. You can get along to their meetups, talk about game development, show off your game. And then state events, which are also really good to meet other developers and perhaps make some links within the industry, potentially Xbox and PlayStation, perhaps representatives from other publishers like that, would be AvCon in Adelaide, Supernova throughout Australia, the Rooster Teeth Expo in Sydney, and GammaCon for the Canberra teams. Those events are a really, really great way to test your product on audiences. So once you've selected a prototype that you're happy with, you basically want to move through refactoring. You want to clean it up, start clean and neat. Look at the improvement plan and implement. Start with grey boxing, all of the art assets, just get the bare minimum happening so that you can see the core mechanics playing. Identify and embellish unique factors. So if your game has a unique mechanic, you want to think about how you're going to elaborate on that unique mechanic, exposing it to the player and giving them more uniqueness. This is also a point in time where you want to consider really getting pre-production well and truly underway. You want lots of cool concepts. If you've got a great artist in your team, they might be able to generate some concepts for environments and characters. Also, I think collecting reference imagery of other games using Pinterest is a good tool. Creating mood boards, those sorts of things, and embark on designing the game flow, the menu flow. Start mapping all of those things down. Try and resist going over the top with building the game at this point. You also want to start establishing some of your workflow processes. Establish a plan for task tracking. Break down all of the parts, all the tasks into its smallest parts. Prioritize and set the tasks over time and track. Tracking these through regular sprints is a good way to handle ensuring you get the task done in time. Setting up a version control system. Some of these have task tracking built into them. And set up social media. Start doing screenshot Saturdays. Start sort of talking about the process of you developing your product. Also think Google Drive is a really good, useful tool for teams to set up a drive to share documentation and other bits and pieces in. So that's where I'm refactoring at that point. Once you're sort of pretty content with rebuilding the game from ground up, you'll be headed towards a vertical slice. And this is where you want to kind of establish the overall feel of the game. You want to give people 2 minutes of fun, 5 minutes of fun, a clear vision of what the full game will be. Develop the core idea. Allow the audience to understand your idea from playing the demo of the game rather than you explaining it to them. And that's not to say you need a really in-depth tutorial either. You want to have all that information as quick and easy to digest as possible. You want people to walk away wanting more. You want them to think, wow, that was awesome. I can't wait to play the full game. And this could be a catalyst for engaging communication with your broader audience. You should also start establishing a marketing plan. You should begin development, if you haven't already done so, of a website. Consider where you're going to have your demo hosted, if it's going to be on the website or somewhere else. You should be well underway with your devlog. You should have really cool images of your artwork and little GIFs of the game being played. Show your game off to other developers, get feedback, show your game off to other critical thinkers. You want to start building screenshots and gameplay videos to be promoted on your website, potentially through your social media channels. And at this point, it's probably not a bad idea to start researching additional funding sources. Grants, crowdsourcing, contracts, or selling assets can be other ways of building revenue through the production of your product. So Promoter app has a whole bunch of really great things. You do need to pay a little bit of money for it. However, they do provide a competition calendar for game developers, and that's the link for it there. It's live, it's up to date, it's maintained, and you'll be impressed with how many game development competitions there actually are. And then obviously crowdfunding, different sorts. The two main ones are Kickstarter, and the other one is Patreon. Definitely worth investigating. Both require a fair amount of effort, but if you're doing a really robust social media kind of campaign, you might find that Patreon's a good fit. Kickstarter is probably best left for later, once the product is closer to being finished and used more as a marketing and promotional tool. Both have been used, or all of these really have been used by game developers to varying success in the past. So full production, obviously, depending on sort of game you're building, is often the largest sort of part of building a game. And it's really just rattling through the iterative process, including more and more features to the game based on your schedule. Generally, teams that I've worked with work through iterative 2-week to 1 month sprints where they develop a bunch of content to be implemented into the major project. Features and assets are added in order of priority. Art is being made pretty. At this point, teams start estimating play sessions and overall play time. So generally the value of the product. It's always a good idea to add game analytics so that you can get the results that are difficult to asking questions. Things like how long did you play for? What levels did you get to? Did you shoot the gun multiple times? Those sorts of questions which people aren't sort of paying attention to while they're playing the game. Game analytics covers for you. So recommend implementing that, and it's simple to do. You may want to begin the process of applying to become a console developer as well. It can take a little bit of time, and you are going to need the things listed above before you do that. As far as where your business is up to, you're looking at maintaining professional networking. You should have developed a promotional plan, a calendar of events that you're going to use to promote your product with. Start implementing your marketing plan. Establish distribution. Set up a Greenlight page if you're going for console. Itch.io is a bit easier, and it could be a good way to test the market. You also may want to look at what you need to do to get onto the Google and iTunes store. Start thinking about a price point for a game. Typically, PC indie games are $10 to $20. That's really a considered decision because you want to be able to go on sale and still get some money. So $10 allows for an easy breakdown on 75% off, 50% off, 25% off, 10% off. It just makes calculations a lot easier if you're at the $10 or $20 price point. You also got to look at the value of your game compared to other products on the market at the time. Start considering a release date, but keep it secret. Be broad. Think about releasing in the first quarter of any 1 year. It's generally PR and press are a bit light on with stories in the games industry at that point in the year because Christmas has happened. So start thinking about releasing in that first quarter of any 1 year. Use your business plan to apply for funding. So in your local state, you will have a funding body that you could apply for. You need to do some research to actually find funding. Funding's usually co-funding or reimbursed, so it's not full amounts for production. You want to establish a founders agreement if there's a team of people, so who owns what and how are you going to receive your money. And to that end, you may want to consider registering a company so that you can set up a bank account. And typically you do this when it's likely that you'll make some money. For a lot of teams, it's usually when they're about to release their first product on the Android store or when they've got through the Greenlight process. So I've listed here some of the sites that you may want to apply for with your products, and I've tried to categorize them. SlideDB is a really good way to test the market for your mobile games. It's free, and it sort of sets you on course for the materials that you'll need to promote your product on that distribution channel, and obviously the Google Play Store and the App Store. These do come with a fee, and it can be a fair bit more work to set up. Having that company bank account is going to make your life a lot easier, and having a company to register the product under will make your life easier as well. IndieDB and Itch.io really like these websites that they enable people to publish, the vertical slice of the demo of the game so they can start engaging with the audience. PC distribution typically starts with Greenlight to access Steam. all going well, and if you've been able to establish communication with the Humble Store, you could find your product on there, along with all of the other PC distribution sites like Greenman Gaming, Gamersgate, those sorts of places. And then obviously one to watch is the VR distribution. Steam does some of that. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that space. I've added Wii VR there, just Wear VR, because that's one. Once you've gone through all of that, then you might find yourself being offered bundled distribution. I've listed a couple here. There's pros and cons being involved in these. It's going to be down to you as to whether or not you want to get involved, and that's for PC and mobile games. And then console distribution, I've listed the little indie console, the Ouya. I think some really great games have come out of the Ouya, Towerfall and Duck Game. Really fun games. They started there. And obviously the two big ones that seem to be supporting independent development quite well are Xbox and PlayStation. What to do when releasing? Basically, there's a whole number of ways you go about this, but I suggest to teams think about publishing a game on the first platform, monitor the feedback, look for required fixes and start building updates, and then consider porting the game to other identified platforms. If you can get across PC and mobile, or PC and console, then you're basically just broadening your potential for revenue from your product. Promotion and marketing are really big at this point in time. Obviously, you want to write to the press, let them know that your product's come out. You want to take your game and enter it into competitions based on that list that I showed you earlier. Competitions will translate to further revenue, and you get a lot of exposure from those competitions. The biggest one being the Independent Games Festival. If you win that, you've basically got an amazing game. Previous winners include Minecraft. Indicate is another notable festival. The IGF is in San Fran and Indicate is in Los Angeles. Both very notable events. And then also you may want to sort of take your product to trade shows. Melbourne International Games Week has many great things, including the Unite Day, and it has GCAP, Games Connect Asia Pacific, which is for developers to share knowledge, and then it culminates in PAX Oz at the end of that week. So showing your product off at a large trade show like this, you basically want to be close, if not already released, so that you can sell more products. It also gives you an opportunity to get in front of press. Press equals a lot more eyeballs on your product and a greater awareness and visibility of your product. Once you've been to an event like this, you kind of want to maintain communication with anybody that you've established communication with and try and build on that success to keep selling it. Post-release, make sure you've got your game nice and stable. You may want to consider porting your game to other platforms based on the game's control scheme. So if it lends itself to mobile, then go that way. If it's all three, console, mobile, and PC, even better. And you can basically apply to be an Xbox developer through the ID program, and PlayStation also have a portal for developers to apply to become PlayStation developers. Sponsorships and sales. Really, you want to keep pushing your product across multiple distribution channels. You may want to attempt to get into a humble bundle to gain further exposure. Assess when to go on sale, if to go on sale at all. Going on sale can really boost revenues. Respond to audiences through product forums. So, keep up the chatter. Keep responding to what they're saying, particularly if they've got an issue and if you can help. Start considering hardware sponsorship at events. and consider being a speaker at a trade show for free tickets and whatnot. So last couple of things. So Indie Fund, it's basically a fund made up of established independent developers who want to help the next generation of independent developers succeed. It's worth looking at. And then if you apply for the Indie Mega Booth, which is connected to a couple of trade shows over in the United States, you'll get Alienware, and you get in, you'll get Alienware computers to show your